grappling with the difference between the two and all of the intermediate scales that are possible frame a lot of the dilemmas that humanity is working through now and has always had to work through. Those are legion, and I will not enumerate them. One that I think you'll find this installation comments powerfully on is climate change. Through a lot of the last 500,000 years, atmospheric CO2 concentrations have bounced around in the 180, 280 parts per million range. In 1952, which was the year that the atmospheric observation station on the Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii was established, also the year my father was born, 315 parts per million. In 1979, the year that I was born, 340 parts per million. In 2018, about 405 parts per million. We can no longer ignore this global carbon cycle and the role that all organisms, like the plants that we're in the midst of here, but most definitely the higher mammals that we are, play in this. And it's in the grappling with these rhythms of global biogeochemical cycles and the grappling of scale that an answer is going to come. And so I'm particularly glad that we have Owen Brown here, who's done this installation. Owen is a manager and administrator, an engineer, and an artist, and has this work for us. Before I turn it over to Owen, I'm going to see if our President Emeritus, Wes Jackson, has any words for us.
I do. Strong Donnelly was on our board of directors and had been a major funder, and after he died, Vivian continued and on our board, and Vivian just died a couple of weeks ago. But this property would not have the title, the Land Institute title, if it hadn't been for Strong Donnelly. There's a development to the south, and there's also a more upscale development to the north. In the last round of bidding, the farmers went out right away. But there were 3 bidders. 2 of them development people, and 1 of them Strong Donnelly. And it hadn't been revealed that he was bidding in our behalf. 206 acres, a quarter section minus that little homestead down there, plus beyond the half mile, all the way to the river is this property. We lost valued colleague and friend about 10 years ago. 12 years ago, Marty Bender. No one that I knew, and I think I could get widespread agreement out of the Audubon Society, that knew more of the natural history, not only of this area, but lots of places in Kansas, all the way from bedrock geology to the constellations, than Marty Bender. So it was fitting that when we lost him, that this Marty Bender nature area, that this area should be named the Marty Bender nature area.
And of course it starts with a wonderful poem by Wallace Stevens, which some of you probably know, and it is Anecdote of the Jar. I'll read it first. I placed a jar in Tennessee, and round it was upon a hill. It made the slovenly wilderness surround that hill. The wilderness rose up to it and sprawled around, no longer wild. The jar was round upon the ground, and tall, and of a port in air. It took dominion everywhere. The jar was gray and bare. It did not give of bird or bush like nothing else in Tennessee. So this was Stevens, and he was writing this 99 years ago. It was published in October of 1919. Well, of course, here no one is going to call the wilderness slovenly, nor do we at the Land Institute take dominion as cavalierly as we might have back then, which is something that's still going on. And in truth, my aim was not for the wilderness here to be no longer wild, because it should be wild, or as wild as it might be, but what I wanted to do was to build with these a port in air that is a spot of restfulness, of connectivity, and repose. If we go back to the poem, the discourse is between the man-made, the jar, and nature-made, what it means to rise up and how a jar intrudes. And of course, we're not of nature per se, and so we must intrude, but we want to do it mindfully and gently and attentively. And that's what I wanted to do with these extremely slim sundials. And then with their stubborn, baroquely decorated companion posts. And each one of these sites, although they are in many ways the same, is a different species or a different variation of this idea. And in order to see them, we should continue on to the next. And I'll speak a little bit further when we get there. Okay? Pointed off at a station that you can't even see from here. We have to take it on trust that, one, I did the calculations correctly, and two, the Earth will continue to rotate. But let's assume that it will. And I'll start off with a quote from John Berger, who is a well-known novelist, philosopher, and critic. The relationship between what we see and what we know is never settled. Each evening we see the sunset. We know that the Earth is turning away from it, yet the knowledge, the explanation, never quite fits the sight. So it's this uncertainty, this lovely mismatch between what we know and the enormous, pressing reality that we are heedless of that can come more into frame through art. Just the incongruity of a worked object in a field of grass by itself, like these posts and these sundials. You forget the shadow and the plan, and you come up with your own why. I wanted to make you more open to wonder with this. You have a lock, so do I, we all do. With my sundials and my posts, I want to hand you a key to uncertainty, disquiet, and mystery. Why this and why not that? I don't want to give you any answers. I don't even want to give you questions. I want you to have questions and come up with your own explanations. And I want you to relish and become comforted in discontinuity. Once again, jars on a hill, a port in air. How discongruous this is. How different we are from the prairie, each other and ourselves, and yet how we want to strive to continue to live and live harmoniously. That's my hope that this will provide visitors now and in the future. And once we've seen our fill, we can go on to a passage of the second. But I don't want to rush anybody. The road coming through here, but it's close enough for Owen's work, and close enough too for me to read this final quote. And I want you to pay attention. It's an important one. It's from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. It's on goodwill. This is the word of the Buddha. As a mother would risk her life to protect her child, her only child, even so, should one cultivate a limitless heart with regard to all beings, with goodwill for the entire cosmos. Cultivate a limitless heart, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hostility or hate, whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down. As long as one is alert, one should be resolved on this mindfulness. This is called a sublime abiding, here and now, not taken with views, but virtuous and consummate in vision. So of course it goes on a little bit beyond that, but I want here to emphasize when we open our hearts, we are open to gratitude, to affection for others and for the world above, below, and all around. Now we've walked the triangle, and I don't mean it to be a pilgrimage particularly, but just walking can bring one to meditation in the best of ways and open oneself to thoughts of compassion, selfless joy, equanimity. And these are feelings that with this installation I deliberately want to encourage. Those are what's right in the world where so much is wrong. I want your feelings here to be such that you will go back to that world and do what's right. And when you're feeling that you need to be recharged, come back to a place before words. Come back right here. The sundials will be waiting for you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.